NHL fans, the wait is over. The National Hockey League gets underway on Tuesday, October 11th, and last season, 8 WagerTalk handicappers went over 50 units in the NHL. To celebrate the start of the season, we are offering a 7-day NHL package for only $49. Yes, that's only $7 a day, and it will be valid through Sunday, October 9th. Don't worry, NBA fans, we'll be running the same special for you next week.
We are live, and it is Monday, October 10th, a new week here on WagerTalk Today, WagerTalk TV. We'll be here every day this week, Monday through Friday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. And, of course, archived 24/7 for your viewing pleasure right here on WagerTalk TV. And don't forget about the WagerTalk TV app. Download it on your favorite mobile device. Watch us anytime, day or night. Also, listen to us audio style on any podcast as well, WagerTalk Today. I am Steve Merrill, filling in for the Prez this week. He remains on assignment, and that is Teddy Covers, my co-host, as always. Rock steady, Teddy. And Teddy, we're going to get right to it. We've got a busy show on Monday, as we always do. Of course, we've got a new week of football, but it's always important to look back as well on Monday and see what we learned this past weekend. We're going to look at Monday Night Football, of course, as we do every week with Marco D'Angelo, one of the co-founders of WagerTalk.com, here in a few minutes. Raiders and Chiefs tonight. We're also going to finish it off later, as we've done the last couple of weeks with Meghan Payton, NFL prop expert. She's done a fantastic job here at the Monday Night Football props. And in between, we got Drew Martin. He's going to talk a little college football. And also, don't forget the MLB playoffs divisional round starts tomorrow. Drew Martin's going to look at that Padre-Dodger game. Speaking of baseball, we will be on today at 2 o'clock Eastern. 2 o'clock Eastern, we're going to have a preview of the first couple games for the daytime games tomorrow. And then we'll be back tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern with first pitch again for a couple more games. So no baseball going today, but we do have a baseball show today. And that, of course, is after Teddy's opening line report, NFL style, with Drew Martin at 1 o'clock Eastern. So, Teddy, a busy day as always on Monday. Let's get right to it. What did you learn this weekend? Give me a little triple-double Bs for the viewers.
Sure. Let's do a little bad beats, bad bets, and bad for the books. A recap of what just happened this past weekend from a Las Vegas perspective. We'll start with some bad beats on Saturday. How about Virginia Tech plus 14.5 at Pitt? It's a 1-point game at halftime. It's a 2-point game in the fourth quarter. Anyone can win. And Pitt's just trying to run the clock out at the end. They get an 80-yard touchdown run. They win by 16 plus 14.5. No good. How about Vandy plus 17.5 against Ole Miss? It's a 3-point game at halftime. And it's a 17-point game in the fourth quarter at plus 17.5. So what does Vandy do after they score? Well, onside kick down 17. There's 4 minutes left. They don't recover the onside. And the Rebels, instead of running the ball up the middle 3 times and punting, they're going for it on 4th down. They're throwing the football downfield. There's no need for Lane Kiffin. They punch in the spread covering touchdown with 18 seconds left to win by 24 and cover the spread. Lane Kiffin knew what the point spread was in that ball game. Bad beat for Vandy backers. How about the Wyoming-New Mexico total? It was sitting at 37 for a reason. There's no way the game's going to get over 37 unless there's a pick six in the final minute to turn 20-14 into 27-14. The over cashes. The other college football game total in the 30s, Illinois-Iowa, that finished 9-6. Auburn plus 28. They get the big play touchdown in the fourth quarter to come in through the back door. Georgia doesn't care. They march down the field, a 15-play drive for the touchdown to cover again. Tough if you had Auburn there. And, of course, Liberty minus 22.5. UMass has a fumble return touchdown and then an 85-yard drive late in the fourth. They sneak in under the number. Tough if you were laying with Liberty. In the NFL on Sunday, look, the Bucs minus 10 versus the Falcons. The game was 21-0. It was over until it wasn't. 21-15 final. The reason Atlanta didn't rally back to win the game was a truly horrible personal foul call on Grady Jarrett's sack of Tom Brady. Nonetheless, you had Tampa. That wasn't any fun. How about the Seahawks plus 5.5 at the Saints? They let out right with under 5 to play. They allowed a big play to Taysom Hill, a touchdown, the 2-point conversion. Then Geno gets sacked on the last drive. New Orleans wins by 7. Not fun for Seahawks plus 5.5 backers. And if you had the over in the Bills-Steelers total, there weren't many of you. It got bet from 47.5 down to 44.5. They had 34 at halftime and 41 at the end of the ball game. Tough if you had the over there. When it comes to bad bets, look, on Saturday, no Malik Cunningham for Louisville. All Virginia money. The Cavs plus 4 to -1. They lose by 3 scores. Virginia money all wrong. Lots of Michigan money. They were 10-10 at the half. Scored 300 touchdowns in the second half. Still didn't cover. Minus 23.5 against Indiana. Michigan money all bad. All Gators money all week against Missouri. The Tigers defense kept them in it again. They lost by only 7 at plus 11. The Florida money was wrong. And this one shocked me. App State minus 17 up to minus 20. They were out of it early at Texas State. Lost by double digits, never in the game. App State money all wrong. On Sunday, nothing but Packers money. Green Bay closed minus 9, minus 9.5 in London. The Giants rallied from behind and won the game outright. Packers money was a bad bet. Wise guys love the Commanders. Heck, when you look at the wise guys in the NFL on Sunday, and again, you can look at my Pros versus Joe's tweet every Sunday. The Pros bet the Bucks no good, the Vikings no good, the Commanders no good, and the Browns no good. Those were all bad bets or tough coin flips that went against them. Not a great days for the Pros in Sunday betting action. When it comes to bad for the books, well, they had quarterback issues in college football. Oregon State quarterback Chance Nolan out. The Beavers went from minus 7 to minus 4 at Stanford. Cardinal had a pulse in the game. They still found a way to lose it at the end, but covered the number. The Oregon State QB being out, bad for the books. No Levis for Kentucky. The word is out on Beamer in South Carolina. Gamecocks from plus 10.5 down to plus 4.5. They went out right by double digits. That was bad for the house. Kansas State opens 2.5. Closes Pick'em at Iowa State. They win by 1. That's a wise guy special. You bet that game, you're supposed to win or push. You lost. Work on your betting skills a little bit. Oregon, a bad game for the house. Minus 10 up to minus 13.5. Arizona was not ready to hang with the big boys yet. They lost by 4 touchdowns. And Texas got bet up against Oklahoma. The wise guys knew a letdown was coming. 49-0. That was bad for the books. And again, the Pros versus Joes on Sunday. All Niners money at Carolina. That was bad for the house. Tennessee, Joes were all over Tennessee. San Francisco, obviously I just talked about. And Dallas, another one that was a bad game for the house when it comes to the public betting. There you have it, Merrill. A little bad beats, bad bets, and bad for the books. Back to you, my friend.
Yeah, awesome stuff as always, Teddy. And I'll jump in on the public stuff because you know I follow that closely with my Fade the Public video. And by the way, I do have public insight for tonight's game, Raiders-Chiefs. That video is still on WagerTalk TV here, so it's not too late to check out the final game in that series. Last week, of course, public was heavy on the Rams. We know how that worked out. The Niners looked pretty good. And as you mentioned, they came back on the Niners yesterday, faded the Panthers again, which is a big part of that. It's interesting, Teddy. There were 4 games that made the cut yesterday. The public went 3-1. They were on, as you mentioned, the Titans and the Niners very heavy. There were also 2 public dogs this week. The Cowboys were one of them. Dallas won outright. But the other one was the Seahawks. And, you know, I always say the public's not wrong. Use it as a filter. The only game of the 4 in which I faded the public for a best bet for my clients was on the Saints yesterday. So even though the public went 3-1, I went 1-0 fading them. So once again, just shows how you have to use it as a filter. You just don't blindly play against these teams. And as Marco D'Angelo knows, we'll bring him in. I actually used the Saints in the contest. And Marco, a couple of the other entries we had, I really did like Carolina and Washington earlier in the week because they were such anti-consensus plays. And my other entries, which are doing very well, is also people use both of them. So I was like, that's all right. I'll use the Saints. I'll play that against that public dog. But in our contest, Marco, no one used the Commanders, who I knew you were looking at. You like the ugly dogs as well, and also the Panthers. But it worked out for us. We stayed off those ugly dogs. Luckily, I believe we were 4-1. If I'm not mistaken, Marco, is that now 21-5 for our 21-4 for our entry? I think so. It's a really nice start. Marco, what were your thoughts on the NFL yesterday?
Washington, they're dead to me. They were on my Circa card. I went 3-1-1 on my Circa card yesterday. The push on the Circa card was Cleveland, where in the Super Contest at the Westgate, they actually had 2.5 on Cleveland. So we got a win with the Browns there. And Teddy, I'm surprised you didn't bring the Browns game up yesterday because I saw 2 of the most horrific coaching decisions in one game by each coach. Neither coach deserved to win that game. And you got Stefanski going on 4th and 1 in a 3-point game in the third quarter on his own 34-yard line. Yeah, you know what happened. They get stuffed on 4th down, give the Chargers a gimme field goal. And then the Chargers, with just under 2 minutes to play in the game, they got a 4th and 1 in the fourth quarter, leading by 2 at their own 46, I believe, 4th and 1. We punt the football? No. The math guys say 4th and 1, it's a high percentage play. Yeah, it's a high percentage play whenever you play it out over maybe 1,000 times. But how many times is it 4th and 1 when the game's not on the line? Poor decisions by both coaches, in my opinion. And what does Cleveland do? Well, they get down there and miss a field goal. God bless them. So that was yesterday. I don't know if you have a thought on it.
Well, the reason that didn't make bad beats bad, because even if he makes the field goal at the end, Cleveland covered the number. So it wasn't a point spread changing field goal. And that's why that game wasn't on the list. But if you have, I watched the whole game. I don't know. I can't fathom how Cleveland found a way to lose it. But they found a way to lose it.
It's a Cleveland team.
Yeah, that
don't
was my
forget
top
the game,
play
the first
yesterday.
team.
So,
yeah, and as Marco knows,
got to push with the clients, but very, very bad play decisions. And you got the two best running backs in the league, and you got Jacoby Brissett throwing an interception in the end zone when he could have walked it in. He could have walked the touchdown in. I would have had a shot.
They only needed a field goal. He could have thrown the ball on the stands and you kicked the field goal. I get you.
Yeah, Marco, of course, as you know, your Cleveland Browns were the first team in over 2,000 games to blow a 13-point lead in under 2 minutes earlier this year to the Jets. So 2 games that got away from them here. And it's very hard to make playoffs and win championships when you blow 2 games like that in the first 5 weeks of the season. With that said, let's look at Monday Night Football. And then also Marco's, we love his advanced college games, I forgot to mention, because he also takes does what I do, I think. He circles that schedule every Sunday night, Monday mornings, where there's some letdown spots. And I'm always curious to get your take on that, too, an advanced college football game. But first, Marco, let's look at Monday Night Football, Raiders, Chiefs. Buffalo did not suffer the look ahead. I mentioned that our Westgate entry is doing extremely well, 21-4. The only miss we had yesterday was the only miss that Jay Money's had all season, by the way, and that was on the Steelers yesterday. They did not catch Buffalo in a flat spot looking ahead to the big Chiefs game this weekend. I want to get your thoughts on Kansas City tonight. Do they stay focused at home against the Raiders?
Well, I hate to say it, Steve. Buffalo could have had a flat spot, and they still were going to slaughter the Steelers yesterday. My Steelers are in total disarray right now, and throwing in, Kenny Pickett. You can't judge a quarterback, first start in the NFL, but they were good. That's a good defense he went against with Buffalo. Yeah, they had injuries yesterday, but it's still a good defense, and they put pressure on them. The offensive line for the Steelers is not good, so I'm not going to put too much in that. But I'll tell you, I am going to put it into KC. I think they get caught looking ahead a little bit tonight. I know this is a division game, but how do you take the Raiders seriously when you have just absolutely owned their souls? Last year, they blasted them 2 games that were never even close from the start. Kansas City scores 40-plus in both of those games. And you know what? As much as we look ahead to that showdown next week, let's face it, the way of what we've seen in the AFC this year, as far as the 2 consistent teams, it's Buffalo and it's Kansas City. Those 2 are going to battle for the AFC championship again this year. And it's going to come down to who gets home field. And I think Kansas City's going to look ahead to that game next week. And all offseason, the narrative has been, well, Buffalo only lost because they won the coin toss, or they lost the coin toss. Kansas City's had to listen to that, too. And that's a big game next week for that as well. But with that said, we got to handicap tonight's game. And the Raiders finally got a win. And you know what, Steve? The hardest win for a new coach is the first one. Okay? And things here in Vegas, Teddy can tell you, press is, everybody was getting a little restless starting the season out 0-3 with the Raiders because this was supposed to be their year. They went out and got the big playmaker in Devontae Adams. That was the big offseason signing for, the most coveted free agent. And it was designed for one thing, to compete with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Raiders needed more offense to try to stay with the Chiefs. This is that game. I also like the fact, even though I'm not a big Josh McDaniels fan, he does come from the coaching tree of Bill Belichick. And although the offspring from that coaching tree really hasn't had a lot of success in the NFL yet, he's been there long enough that the one team that always gave Kansas City trouble, with Brady, without Brady, whatever, has been the New England Patriots and Belichick. So I think that's going to give him a little bit of confidence in a game plan. Couple that with the fact that KC has the big game next week. And if you look at last week, these 2 teams changed their stripes, their identities. Kansas City ran the football 37 times against Tampa Bay. That absolutely shocked me. On the flip side, Tampa Bay only had, I think, like 6 rushing attempts. They fell way behind early, and Brady had to throw the football 52 times. But the Raiders found a running game last week against Denver, and prior to that game, people thought Denver had a decent defense. So I was impressed that they got the running game going. I think they can trade points with Kansas City. I think Kansas City escapes, but I think it's going to come down to the last possession. I'm going to go ahead and take the Raiders plus the points.
So let me get this straight, Marco. It's a Monday Night Football home game for a team that expected to be in the Super Bowl last year and didn't get there. They're against a divisional rival, and this is a flat spot because they have Buffalo next week.
I'm not going to call it a total.
Buffalo. I get to talk.
Okay.
Wouldn't you think that maybe the game against Buffalo next week is the flat spot because it's not about beating Buffalo in the regular season and with that corollary, all right? Because I don't think this is a flat spot for Kansas City, clearly. Otherwise, I wouldn't ask the question. But with that, explain to me how Las Vegas gets stops in this game. Because one thing we saw yesterday with the elite offense, it's pretty clear with Buffalo against Pittsburgh, a game you referenced in a game that I didn't enjoy at all, is that when the elite offenses get going, unless you've got an elite defense, you ain't stopping them. And say what you want about the Raiders. They don't have an elite defense. So talk about this. Do you really think a Monday Night Football home game against the division is a flat spot? And talk about the Raiders defense.
I'm not saying that that they're going to come up flat. I'm not saying that. I'm saying as far as it goes, for home field advantage, next week's game is going to be more important. I think Buffalo and KC are going to come down to who is hosting the game, the AFC Championship game. And that's going to be determined next week, in my opinion. Plus the fact, don't forget, playing Tom Brady, whether Tampa is playing well or not this year, you're playing Tampa and you're playing Tom Brady, and Mahomes and Brady, there's always going to be comparisons between those two. Because Mahomes is the now and Brady was and is the GOAT. That was a big game last week for them. So now you're going to ask them for a second week in a row to have, a big monster effort. And then next week, Buffalo. And like I said, Buffalo to me is going to be more important at the end of the season deciding who's in the Super Bowl than this Monday night game with the Raiders. That's what I'm trying to say. Yes, it's a big game. It's a division game. It's on TV. They're not going to not show up. But I think this is going to be one of those ones where they're going to go up and down the field. And at this point in time, Teddy, the Raiders' offense is more diverse than what we've seen out of Tampa Bay, in my opinion.
Okay, so I'm the tiebreaker here. I'll tell you when the flat spot might be. It's the following game after Buffalo for Kansas City, right? But then you look at the schedule and you realize that's at San Francisco on a Sunday. It's another big game for them. And then they have the bye week before they play Tennessee. So it's kind of an interesting scheduling spot. By the way, speaking of San Fran, they're coming off some tough games. A lot of people, that's another reason, as you said, Teddy, that the pros were fading them because they were coming off those back-to-back, primetime games as well. And they went into Carolina, Teddy, and of course smacked the Panthers still.
And here's your nightmare scenario. So San Fran has back-to-back games east. They're staying east this week. They've done this 4 times in the Shanahan era. All 4 times they've won the second game back east. All 4 times they've returned home the following week and lost. So it might be a bad spot for San Fran as well.
Yeah, they're at Atlanta, of course, this week. And Atlanta, by the way, never in doubt, Marco. Prez had them in our entry. Once again, the WagerTalk.com entry that is 21-4 in the Westgate. Prez wanted me to mention he's out today, but he did shoot me a note. And I figure I'll do it during your segment, Marco. It's not fair to take up anybody else's time. But Prez wants everyone to know that he is red hot, 9-2 in the NFL yesterday. I'm sure the Falcons were one of them, never in doubt. And he has a 5% tonight, Teddy covers. I know you're excited to hear that. And it is all seriousness, $9 Monday. So that normally would be $35, but it's just $9 because it's $9 Monday. I've got the over-under actually for Monday Night Football up there. Marco, tell us what you've got and then get to a college football advanced play for us.
Well, I've got an advanced college football play for Saturday, and it's simply put, it's my college football odds maker error. My numbers have the other team the favorite in this game, and I understand why Vegas did what they did, but I think it's a mistake, and I'm taking advantage of it. I'm jumping on it right now, and you can too. Instead of paying $25 for it, which is the normal price. You can get it for $9 on $9 Monday. And we've had a good run with our plays over the last 17 days. We're up over $3,000 playing $100 per unit. So in most of those plays are, 3-unit plays, couple fours in there. We did have a 5 over the weekend, which I lost, full disclosure. So been a good run for us. So let's keep it going in $9 Monday. And Teddy, can you confirm to make it a trifecta? Because I got the text from Prez last night too, letting me know what his record was for the weekend with the NFL. So did he text you and let you know too?
So I had texted with him earlier in the day and sent him a fairly nasty text in the last one to tell him to shut up. So he did not text me that one. You know, because when Prez is texting, dude, you're like, dude, go away.
He texted the guest. He texted our guest to promote his NFL record. That is classic. Oh my goodness, Marco. Hey, you handled that well, man. That was smooth. We got the Prez out of the way. And all seriousness, talking about college football, I love when you come on Mondays, though, because you always kind of have like a flat spot angle maybe for us. I think that's probably what you're looking at here in this game. I actually, by the way, Marco, had a best bet on Iowa State, a cover on Saturday night for my clients against Kansas State. But, of course, they lost that game by a point. They got the cover, but just like Oregon State a few weeks ago when they barely missed upsetting USC, I cashed that for my clients. Oregon State came out and got smoked the next week, but different scenario here. They're getting a lot of points. Do you trust Iowa State here this week?
Yeah, I'm going to come back with Iowa State. And I was on the same thing as you, Steve, with Iowa State this week. And that was the absolute perfect ending for me because I have a big 5% ticket on Kansas State season win total over. So I absolutely loved the 1-point victory by Kansas State. I celebrated that one quite a bit. But for this one, Teddy, you always like to use the phrase, we look to, buy low, sell high. Well, right now, there isn't a team that is any higher, and I'm talking both public perception and the team itself right now, than the Texas Longhorns. You're talking about a rivalry game. The Red River rivalry. I still want to call it the shootout, but we're not allowed. So it is what it is. They blasted their hated rival, Oklahoma, 49-0. And everybody's going to look at that game, nationally televised game. It was one of the early games. So, obviously, got a spotlight on it. That thing was over quickly, and it just kept getting worse. I don't know that I've ever seen an Oklahoma team play as bad as they did, and they really looked like they quit. And do you blame Oklahoma? This is a team that, their coach left, bolted late for them, go to take the greener pastures in USC. Oh, and as he's heading out the door, he grabs your quarterback and takes him with him through the transfer portal. So life is good for Texas. Who's going to want to step in front of them after what they saw? Who's going to want to do it against a team that scored, 9 and 11 points the last couple of weeks? Iowa State, no, nobody's going to want them. And you're paying a premium for that Texas team. This line, when I sent it in, I loved it at 14.5. I wake up this morning, I got an extra 1.5. It's up to 16. Everybody running to the Texas side. This is a letdown spot for Texas on its own, just off of the Oklahoma game. Fat and sassy alert, yucking it up on the sidelines, 49-0. But I like to use the phrase sandwich. You can't get a bigger sandwich than an Oklahoma State sandwich. You're coming off your arch rival, and next week you're playing the team that's undefeated and number 1 in the conference. Yeah, good luck, Texas. And you know what? This week you're not going through a Swiss cheese defense known as Oklahoma. Iowa State brings it defensively. This is one of the top defenses in the country. Number 8 in points per game allowed, 13.7. And number 11 in yards per game allowed, 264. Give me that overinflated underdog that can play defense. I love taking a dog that's the better defense. I'll go with Iowa State. Texas escapes with the win, but 27-20.
Marco D'Angelo, and he knows his college football, folks. And as we just said, you can get a strong advanced Saturday college football best bet for just $9 right now from Marco. He's won over 31 units in all sports the last 17 days. Marco, we got to run. Teddy Covers says opening line report at the top of the hour. I know it's killing him not to be able to ask you a follow-up, but it's his own doing. So that's how it works. Marco, great stuff as always. We'll see Marco later this week, of course, on Bet On It right here on WagerTalk TV. Another reason to download that app and make sure you hit subscribe and the bell for instant alerts. You know, Teddy, a lot of football talk, but the baseball playoffs start tomorrow. I want a big game breakdown, MLB series play from Teddy Covers coming up here in 30 seconds.
Hey, NHL fans, the wait is over. The National Hockey League gets underway on Tuesday, October 11th, and last season, 8 WagerTalk handicappers went over 50 units in the NHL. To celebrate the start of the season, we are offering a 7-day NHL package for only $49. Yes, that's only $7 a day, and it will be valid through Sunday, October 9th. Don't worry, NBA fans, we'll be running the same special for you next week.
It is time for today's big game breakdown. Let's call it a big series breakdown. The NLDS starts tomorrow. Let's talk Dodgers and Padres right now. Look at the WagerTalk live odds screen. I'm seeing the Dodgers priced anywhere from minus 215, minus 220, as high as minus 250, depending on the book. Take back on San Diego in the plus 190 to plus $2 range. Let me start with this. The Dodgers are the best team in baseball. They deserve to be this big a favorite. In fact, they deserve to be a bigger favorite than they are against San Diego. The Padres, I'll give them credit for beating the Mets. And you do worry a little bit about the layoff. One team's been playing and the other team hasn't. That's why we're not looking at game one. We're looking at full series in this one. But the Padres are 16 and 40 in the last 56 meetings with LA. They went 2-6 the last 8 of September when they were trying and the Dodgers weren't. All right. Are we looking at Sean Manaea here? Blake Snell? Joe Musgrove? I'm not convinced any of those are going to be able to match what the Dodgers are going to bring to the table. Certainly not with Urias and Kershaw at the top. And frankly, do we trust the Padres lineup? They don't score runs unless they're hitting homers. Do we trust the Padres bullpen? Not so much. I know they play well against the Mets, but it's not the trustworthy unit in this series. When it comes to the two pens, I think the Dodgers are going to win the series. I think they might win it fairly comfortably, and I think the price is reasonable. You have the three big favorites. They're all kind of priced in the same range. Maybe the Braves a little bit cheaper, or the four big favorites, I should say, in the series. But this isn't one where I think the dog is live. Give me the Dodgers to win the series, the best team in baseball, taking care of business. There's the big game breakdown, Steve. Back to you.
Yeah, Teddy, of course, it's a new baseball format. I think people are becoming accustomed to it. But, of course, we have the 3-game wild card series. And the way they bracket it is they don't want the number 1 seed Dodgers to have to play the number 3 divisional seed, which would have been St. Louis. So they kind of caught a little bit of a bad break here, having to play the winner of the Padre-Mets series, in my opinion, instead of the St. Louis-Philly series. So Atlanta now gets Philly instead. It'll be interesting to see if Atlanta takes advantage of what looks like a little bit of an easier road to the conference, the championship game in the National League. Teddy likes the Dodgers to win the series. We're going to bring on Drew Martin. No, what, Teddy? All right, Teddy's disagreeing.
I'm going to say, the Phillies have been a streaky team all year, is all I'm going to say. And they're playing good ball right now. Philly's been hot and cold and hot and cold and hot and cold. And they might be live in Atlanta.
Yeah, I guess what I should have clarified was, I've been big on the Mets this year with DeGrom and Scherzer being able to go 4 out of 7 in these series, once you get further along. I just felt, for the Dodgers to maybe have to play the Mets in the divisional is what I thought was going to be tough. Padres, though, obviously used up Darvish and Musgrove yesterday. A little shorthanded here heading in on the pitching side of things as well. But they picked up those guys in the trade deadline. For my Washington Nationals, Bell, Soto, they got some power now. We'll see how it plays out. But that should be a great series nonetheless. By the way, Drew Martin's coming on right now. We're going to talk a little bit more about game 1 in that series. Teddy mentioned he's a little bit worried about the Dodgers. Drew, will hold off on that for a moment, though, because I do want to talk some college football with you real quick before we get to that baseball for tomorrow. Drew, you do a great job with the opening line report with Teddy Covers here in about a half hour for NFL, but you also do a great job with the Every Game on the Board podcast, covering every single college football game on Wednesday and Thursday later this week with a variety of cappers. who will name nameless. Teddy covers Steve Merrill, sometimes appear. But Drew, anyway, give us one advanced game to look at this week in college football. Little Pac-12, USC, Utah. We just talked with Marco about letdown spots and whatnot. What are your thoughts on Utah? They had that tough loss against Florida and now just played UCLA last week. What do they got left in the tank?
Yeah, well, Steve, good morning to you. Happy Monday morning out there to everybody in the chat box, seeing Jessica, Have, Cash, a bunch of people in here. So thanks for joining us. But Steve, and also thanks for the props on the every game on the board, man. That is a ton of work just logistically to get together. And I think it's such a cool concept, and actually looking at new ways to kind of distribute it out there, both YouTube, Twitter, podcast form. So trying to listen to all the people that are DMing me saying, hey, we want more ways to listen to it. So just to let everybody know out there, I do hear it. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be working on some different ways to get it out there. But Steve, to your question, college football this weekend for me was a rough one. It really was, man. And now to see the stock market kind of so volatile, it's kind of financially, the bookie texted me, I'm like, man, settles on Tuesday. Give me one more day here. But we got to get back at it in college football. Utah, look, I was on the wrong side with them against UCLA. A couple bad calls there were that kind of changed the game, I felt, but really UCLA took it to them. And some worries I have with Utah is their linebacker, their defensive backfield. I worry that they're not quick enough, Steve. They're not fast enough. I mean, UCLA was the bigger, stronger team and able to run away from them when they got the chance, when they got some green grass. Utah in the Pac-12 tends to kind of dominate the lines of scrimmage, and they really weren't able to do that against UCLA. So that's one kind of downside I have towards the Utes here. But really everything I've learned in this business is when a team looks like that on national television and you come back home the next week against a USC team that everybody is so high on right now, it's like, man, you got to go back on Utah here. The spot just screams it. The only problem is there were -3s out there. Now I'm looking at the WagerTalk odds screen and there's 4.5s. So I'm not the only person thinking this. This isn't rocket science. This is college football betting. And a lot of people are thinking the trend that I am. So we might have missed the best of the number, but I do think the spot says go back on Utah, even though, hey, if you lost on them last week, as you both know, kind of hard to go back to the well on a team you just lost with.
Yes and no. I mean, when they return home and they have a chance to redeem themselves from what happened the previous week, it makes for an easier case to go back on that same team you just lost with. But here's my question for you. You talked about the problem that Utah, one of the problems that Utah had against UCLA was that their defense struggled to contain the Bruins' skill position talent. Does that change against USC? Because USC's got some pretty impressive skill position talent that I worry that Utah's just going to struggle to match up against.
Sure. It's a great question, Teddy. And to tell you the truth, I guess we don't know for sure until they get on the game. But, I don't know, Teddy. Do you think they're that as skilled as UCLA's guys? I mean, at the running back position, I don't think so. You do? Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, well,
USC's got playmakers everywhere offensively. I haven't seen anyone shut them down. I've yet to see a defense.
Oregon State gave them issues. Oregon State went toe-to-toe with them.
Yeah, but that was an offensive struggle. That wasn't. They didn't slow down USC. USC moved the ball up and down the field in that game for much of it. And, the venue could be a big factor here. Obviously, Utah returning home and playing up in altitude. But I'm a believer in the Trojans' offense. I don't know about their defense, but their offense is freaking good.
Well, and that brings me to my next point. With Utah, I think their struggles are actually on the defensive backfield, like I was explaining. And I do agree with you. USC's offense is explosive. I actually think it's somewhat similar, not necessarily in style to UCLA, but in playmaking wise. So if there's that open space, Utah can move the ball as well. I mean, their best player, in my opinion, is Cam Rising at the quarterback position. If they didn't have him, that game would have been a lot more ugly than it was against UCLA. So seeing this total, at least last night, I don't have it up right now, but 59.5 was out there. I don't know, guys. I think this looks more like, 40 to 34, something in that range. I think this gets way up and over. We are seeing 59.5 now up to 60.5. So that's what I was actually going to bring up. I think sidewise, it's very difficult in this Conference of Champions possible game of the year, at least preseason wise. But I think totals wise, it gets up and over, Teddy.
And by the way, Drew, USC has one turnover, I believe, all season in 6 games. They threw one interception against Arizona State, and they haven't fumbled all year. I mean, that's 6 games, one turnover. Obviously, in college football, guys, it's not like the NFL. You know, some teams are going to turn it over more than others, but that's pretty remarkable. So we'll see how they do on the road here in a hostile environment now against a Utah team that now has 2 losses on the season. We'll see how if they come to play. All right, if you like Drew Martin, you're going to see a lot of him and Teddy covers together today because they're on at 1 o'clock Eastern Live, NFL Opening Line Report. And then Drew will be back at 2 o'clock Eastern today for MLB First Pitch playoff style. There's no games today. There's 4 tomorrow, but we're going to preview 2 of them today. And then I'll be on with you tomorrow, Drew, to preview the other 2, along with Dave Koch. And you've got Adam Trigger on with you this afternoon. But I want to talk to you about the Dodger-Padres series. Teddy just mentioned he's staying off the Dodgers in game 1. Well, not necessarily staying off them, but he likes the series price more because he's a little worried about the layoff, the long layoff, whereas Padres do have some momentum, but they use their pitchers, obviously, at New York. What's your take on this series, Drew?
Great series. I mean, I love what baseball's done here, Steve. I mean, at first I was a little bit, pumping the brakes on this new format, but I think it's actually really cool. We get a bunch of games stacked up against each other. I think MLB playoffs are definitely heading in the right direction. And one thing I heard Teddy say, which I agree with, although he went really fast over this point, and I think it needs a little bit more kind of looking into. What about this layoff for some of these teams? The Dodgers being one, the Braves being another, the Houston Astros, and the teams that they're playing coming in are hot right now. And it's something in baseball that I tend to think matters a lot in the betting markets, and that's find these hot teams and look to bet on them. What is baseball? It's a very trend-oriented sport. You want to be riding the hot and fading the cold. Now, I don't know about fading the cold, definitely not in the Dodgers and Padres series, but riding the hot, I mean, that was pretty impressive what the Padres were able to do against one of the better teams in terms of the futures prices with the New York Mets and their pitching. So are they able to kind of carry that over here? I think that they might be able to. I mean, Musgrove, what he was able to do, he's at least going to be able to go 1 time in this series, if not 2. But there is a lot pointing towards the Dodgers. Steve, there's a couple stats out there. The Dodgers are the 4th highest single-season win total in MLB history. Of course, only the 2001 Mariners, 1906 Cubs, 1998 Yankees with more. So, in terms of regular season wins, this Dodgers team, as you know, Steve, I've heard you talk about it, their run differential over 330 to the plus side run differential for the season. That is something that's very difficult to step in front of. So I'm with Teddy in terms of looking at ways to bet the Dodgers. However, you got to remember, they're going to start off at home here. So how are you going to bet that? You're going to lay more than $2? Or are you going to lay the run line with a home team? That's not really a smart bet usually in baseball. So at that point, I'm starting to look here, and I haven't made any bets because, the lines just came out this morning. But what I'm going to try to do, Steve, is ride these hot teams. I got the Seattle Mariners circled here. I think what they were able to do was very impressive. Tough to go up against the Astros. And you guys were just talking about the Phillies and the Braves. I mean, the Braves, defending World Series champions, but up against the Phillies, I mean, that Phillies squad, they're hitting right now. So I don't know. I'm kind of looking for some dogs barking. But, Steve, to your question, I don't know. I don't think I'm stepping in front of the Dodgers, man.
Yeah, and Drew, this is only a best-of-5 series also. I want to point that out to people. It's not a best-of-7 like the championship series will be, so that obviously gives the dog probably a little bit of a better chance. The Dodgers are so good. A longer series obviously favors the better team. And first 2 in L.A., next 2 at San Diego, Game 5 if necessary in L.A. By the way, the team that won the season head-to-head series won all 4 wildcard series this past weekend, which was interesting, including San Diego over the New York Mets. All right, that's Drew Martin. Drew, you'll be back in about 15, 20 minutes here. NFL Opening Line Report, 1 o'clock Eastern, and back at 2 o'clock Eastern with Adam Trigger. And I forgot to mention Tijuana Tony Finn will be with you today on Monday on MLB First Pitch. Drew, what else you got going on? $9 Monday, WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, NFL's been running well, very good. Unfortunately, college football took the loss. But, got one I really like coming up on Sunday. So I got that up for $9 Monday. Got one in college football as well. And be out here shortly with the baseball, which has been great. One of the best baseball seasons now. 3 straight of double-digit unit returns here, Steve. So looking to finish out strong in the MLB playoffs and going to finalize the card here by the end of the day. So, check it out.
It's Drew Martin. Once again, he'll be back in a few minutes with Teddy covers NFL opening line report 1 Eastern and also MLB first pitch playoffs 2 o'clock Eastern. Of course, you've missed them live. You can watch them archived 24/7 here on WagerTalk TV. All right, Teddy, we got about 5 minutes where you got to get ready for opening line report. This is going to be the most efficient and profitable 5 minutes of the day for you if you're a football fan, because we're bringing on Meghan Payton, and she's been fantastic with her Monday Night Football props here on Mondays on WagerTalk Today. And Meghan, welcome back once again. Let's get right to it. Give me something. Give me a prop number 1 here for Raiders Chiefs Monday Night Football.
Will do. Hey guys, thank you again for having me join. I love talking Monday Night Football. I've got 3 bets for you this week. Let's start Kansas City Chiefs. My first prop bet is going to be Patrick Mahomes over 2.5 passing touchdowns. This one's a no-brainer to me. Mahomes had 3 passing touchdowns last week against the Bucs. He had 5 passing touchdowns against the Cardinals. You look at the Raiders' pass defense, 24th in the league in terms of passing yards allowed, 24th in the league in terms of points allowed. The Bucs are clearly a better pass defense than the Raiders, and even the Cardinals have the slight edge here. This is going to be a heavy Mahomes game. I really like the over here on Patrick Mahomes, 2.5 or more touchdowns, passing touchdowns, that is. And then let's stick with the Chiefs because Mahomes is going to need someone to throw this to. So I'm going to take tight end Travis Kelce, anytime touchdown. Kelce's now becoming that main primary pass catcher for Mahomes and the Chiefs ever since the departure of wide receiver Tyreek Hill. He's the 48-9. Let's just look at what the Chiefs did last time the Raiders were in town. 48-9. So really, you could take the anytime touchdown score on pretty much any Chiefs pass catcher. That's the kind of game I'm expecting to see. So if you haven't heard me say it this week, I absolutely think the Chiefs are covering the -7 spread, which means that I'm going to find any way to get in on some prop bets for these Chiefs offensive players. Now let's switch over to the Raiders because as much as they have been improving offensively, we saw a big game from Josh Jacobs, 144 rushing yards last week. Devontae Adams finally getting involved. The one player that I think we're going to start seeing a little bit of a decline from, tight end Darren Waller. I'm taking the under 51.5 receiving yards for Waller. He has not had over 50 since week 1 against the Chargers. He's averaging 23 yards the past 2 weeks. And as we said, Devontae Adams rising up. Darren Waller probably going down a bit. Also, the Raiders are going to be getting wide receiver Hunter Renfrow back, which means I think, we're just not going to see as many targets for Waller. So in conclusion, we're taking the over on Mahomes passing touchdowns at 2.5. We're going to take anytime touchdown for Travis Kelce and the under on 51.5 receiving yards for Darren Waller.
So I want to talk about Mahomes of the 3. So far this season, 2-2 at 2.5 touchdown passes, 2 overs, 2 unders. Go back to last year. In his last 17 games, he's 5-12 to the under at 2.5. Now, normally the standard for NFL quarterbacks is 1.5 touchdowns. So you're paying a premium because it's Monday Night Football with the most public player out there in Mahomes, and he's only done this 5 times in his last 17 games. What makes you think that tonight is going to be the difference? Maybe you think that the Chiefs are going to have to trade points with the Raiders? Because it sounds like you said you like Kansas City, and I think Kansas City correlates with Mahomes under because Mahomes isn't going to chuck it around unless they're in a battle. So explain that dichotomy for me.
Well, I'm really looking at the Raiders' pass defense. As we said, they're 24th in the league in terms of passing yards allowed and 24th in the league in terms of points allowed. If we can see Mahomes hit 5 passing touchdowns against the Cardinals, who are slightly better in terms of pass defense, and if we can see 3 passing touchdowns against the Buccaneers, who are ranked 6th in terms of pass defense, I don't see why we can't have this happen in a game against the Raiders. And as much as we talk about offseason change for Kansas City and for Las Vegas, you have to look at history. And history is very clear here. 48-9, Teddy, last time the Raiders were in Kansas City. Is it going to be that big of a game? Probably not. But to me, it is just impossible to bet against Patrick Mahomes when we saw the way he's played last week against the Buccaneers. He's an elite quarterback in this league, and he's my favorite player to watch.
Yeah, Meghan,
worth noting that Mahomes in the 48-9 games, Mahomes had 2 touchdown passes and would cash the under.
That's true.
For 2.5 games. So, good argument though. Excellent follow. Now you got to go.
Yeah,
Steve?
and Well, yeah, I was just saying, Megan, you mentioned the Raiders past you. They gave up 7.5 against teams that averaged 6.5 this year. That's how bad it's been, and 8.7 in their 2 road games. So it's definitely been one of the worst pass defenses in the league. Hey, that's Meghan Payton. I told you it was going to be an efficient 5 minutes of NFL football props. We got 3 of them in and a follow-up in 5 minutes. Great job, Megan. What else can people find with you on Wager Talk TV this week? I know you do some NFL videos on Wednesday. What else you got going on?
Well, thank you, Steve. As always, we'll be previewing 3 different games as we look ahead to Sunday. We're going to be doing some calling out. This is a new segment we're doing called What Were You Thinking? We're going to film it today. It should be out either tonight or tomorrow. Just calling out the people who really deserve some criticism after Sunday's game. So you can find all of this on Wager Talk TV, on the app, and on YouTube.
Meghan Payton, and I believe it's at Meghan Payton 7, the number 7 for her Twitter handle as well. So at Meghan Payton 7, Megan with the GH there, does a great job on Wager Talk TV. Another reason to hit subscribe, hit the bell for instant alerts, including when Teddy's opening line report goes live here in 15 minutes. MLB first pitch, 2 o'clock. And don't forget, my NFL Fade the Public is still available, Monday Night Football edition, right here on Wager Talk TV between the Raiders and Chiefs. Teddy, back tomorrow. You're going to have a day off tomorrow. You'll be back on Wednesday. Take us home.
Yeah, I got a doctor's appointment tomorrow, and sometimes you got to go to the doctor, man. It is what it is. That's going to wrap it for the Monday edition of Wager Talk Today. I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to hang with us. I want to thank Drew Martin, Meghan Payton, and Marco D'Angelo for joining us. Again, we'll do it tomorrow. It'll be Merrill and McGinnis tomorrow. A fascinating and interesting Wager Talk Today. I'll be back again on Wednesday. Between now and then, enjoy the games, and good luck.
Hey, NHL fans, the wait is over. The National Hockey League gets underway on Tuesday, October 11th, and last season, 8 WagerTalk handicappers went over 50 units in the NHL. To celebrate the start of the season, we are offering a 7-day NHL package for only $49. Yes, that's only $7 a day, and it will be valid through Sunday, October 9th. Don't worry, NBA fans, we'll be running the same special for you next week.